Hello, and welcome to another episode of Celiac Straight Talk, the podcast where we come together for a cure. I'm Claire Baker, Senior Communications Director at Beyond Celiac, a nonprofit dedicated to fostering greater understanding and awareness and accelerating research for treatments and a cure for celiac disease, a serious genetic autoimmune disease. In this heartfelt episode of Celiac Straight Talk, joined Beyond Celiac CEO Alice Bast as she sits down with special guest Dylan Dreyer, the beloved co-host of Third Hour of Today. The conversation delves into a personal and candid exploration of Dylan's journey with her 6-year-old son Calvin when he was diagnosed with celiac disease in early 2023. From the initial shock of the diagnosis to the practical steps and emotional nuances of transitioning to a gluten-free life, this episode offers a genuine and relatable discussion about the challenges and triumphs faced by one family. Gain insights into the resilience, adaptation, and love that fuel the commitment to keeping Cal safely gluten-free. Join us for an inspiring dialogue that sheds light on the realities of celiac disease and underscores the strength found in community and understanding. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and don't forget to like and share our podcast.
Can you tell me a little bit about the journey to Calvin's diagnosis? Like, how did you find out that he had celiac disease? Tell me about his symptoms and how the doctor recommended he get tested for celiac disease.
It was a year-long process of trial and error. He had an earache, you go to the ENT. He had a headache that wouldn't go away. His hair was falling out from this rash that was on his head. He was dropping things, but they all kind of happened, and I wasn't really thinking of anything that would be causing all of this at once, So then I eventually went to his pediatrician. I'm like, something's wrong. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. He's like, well, maybe his molars are growing, and that's why he's just in pain. And I'm like, okay, there has to be something more. So he finally sent me to a pediatric GI doctor, and she tested him for a whole bunch of different things, and she included a celiac disease test. And when a lot of these initial markers came back, before they even call you with the results, you get the results, and I'm Googling, and it's just the worst of the worst. And she's like, don't panic because we haven't gotten the results for a celiac disease test. I'm like, it's not that. I've never heard of it before. No one in my family has it. And sure enough, it came back positive for celiac disease. So then we went on to do the endoscopy, and it confirmed celiac disease. So something I'd never heard of before, didn't know, and I still don't know if it runs in either my family or my husband's family, and here he is diagnosed with that.
So tell me about this journey. Tell me about your first year. Now, is it easier for Calvin and for your family, or is it still the same?
It is so much easier. And I wouldn't even say it's the first year that's the hardest. It's that first day, that first week. I was so overwhelmed. Literally every cabinet door was open. I have a picture of myself just sitting on the floor with the step stool, all the cabinets open, and my husband just took this picture, and just tears are rolling down my face because I was so overwhelmed, and I wasn't going to stop until it was done. Around the clock, I was just cleaning and scrubbing because I'm like, this is what's hurting him. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed. And now that our house is gluten-free and we all eat gluten-free, that's the recipes I cook. That's the products I buy. We figured it out, and it's annoying to do certain things. I really don't enjoy traveling or packing for a road trip. I just find it a huge nuisance. As a mom of 3 boys, I have a lot to think about, and this just adds to that.
Busy working mom of 3 boys,
yes,
right?
Working on top of that, having to travel. Myself, without my family, and leaving notes for anybody who's staying. Our nanny is up to speed on how it is in the house, but I have my mom visit or my mother-in-law visit, and it's like, okay, you guys remember the rules, right? Don't order takeout. Don't bring pizza in the house. This house is gluten-free, so don't leave crumbs. And if you want to eat something, go outside and eat it.
And how about birthday parties? Has he been invited to birthday parties since his diagnosis?
He has, which we've skipped because I'm not going to Chuck E. Cheese. Not even because he can go and not eat, but it's not fun for him. You go to Chuck E. Cheese, play some games, you eat pizza, and you have cake, and I just don't want him to not be able to enjoy that. So it's easier to just not have him go to the party. At school, birthday parties at school, or, today after his soccer game, one of the moms actually brought him a tray of gluten-free cookies, which was just so nice. But at school, I give him treats, that he keeps it with the teacher so that if somebody has a birthday celebration in school, she gives Calvin a little cookie instead. Luckily, he's 6. People aren't mean to him yet for being different. I don't know if that'll change as he gets into 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Like, well, why can't you do that? Why do you get a special treat kind of thing? Um, Fortunately, he hasn't experienced that yet.
Well, that's good. We
Yes.
know that sometimes bullying does go on in school, and they may not talk to you. So,
Yes.
it's going to be, you'll have to, you'll navigate that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's doing pretty well with his, maintaining
He
a lot of
is.
friends.
He did say to me, though, recently about an incident last year when somebody made him eat an Oreo. And I said, why didn't you tell me about it? He said, well, I thought you'd get mad at me. And I said, I'll never get mad at you, but I need to know these situations that you're put in so we can talk you through it so you know how to handle it next time. And I said, but why did you take the Oreo? You know you can't eat those. And he said, well, he made me eat the Oreo. He makes everybody do everything he wants. It's just that kind of kid. And he didn't have any GI issues, which almost was a learning experience for me because now I'm wondering if, well, maybe he doesn't really have a GI issue due to celiac disease. Maybe it is just all the other symptoms that he had before that could build up over time, which then it's like, well, that's good because now I know people who, will be huddled over in the corner just in pain after they get glutened. But that's not the case for Calvin. But he has celiac disease. So there is something happening to him. And now I'm just not aware of it. If he is eating an Oreo in school, so it's almost like I'm glad he's not in severe pain like that. But at the same time, I don't always know what's going on with him, so it's just those question marks that just make it just what I think about all the time.
So what would you say is, it sounds to me like one of the myths that, need to be busted is the fact that that if you have celiac disease, you have to have GI symptoms, right?
Right.
Right. And there's all these extra intestinal symptoms.
Right.
And it manifests itself in many different ways. That's why they call it the chameleon disease.
Which makes sense. I mean, which is why when the doctor first mentioned that celiac disease, we're waiting on those test results, I was Googling it and I'm like, well, no, he ate a bagel the other day and he was fine. So it can't be that. But I'm coming to learn that I really don't think he has the GI symptoms with celiac disease.
So I think now you have to be extra vigilant, right? Because you're going to be thinking, did he get glutened or not? So,
Right.
And it may be that, he gets cross-contaminated and he doesn't know.
Well, that's the thing. The science teacher just said that they're using Play-Doh
Play-Doh.
at the end of the school year. And I said, well, did you tell her that you have celiac disease? And he's like, no. And I said, okay, well, before you get to that segment of, science, we need to make sure that she is aware of that.
Yeah, that's, gluten, as we know, is hidden in a number
Yes.
of places, and it's not hidden in Play-Doh, but we know how Play-Doh is made. And so, again, you're going to have to change out the Play-Doh,
Right.
Play-Doh to a gluten-free Play-Doh.
Exactly. So just these things I have to think about that I'm learning, I'm kind of learning as I go.
And if you, for other moms that are in your shoes that have a newly diagnosed child, what would be 1 or 2 hints that you would give to them to tell them about their journey with that first year or maybe the first couple months?
I would say the first few days, especially the first few weeks, the first few months they're going to be miserable. You're going to have so many questions. There's going to be so much you have to do to, like, on a dime, change the way you live in your house, period. It's going to be hard. You're going to find a whole slew of people who are going through the same thing, whether it's an adult or they're going through it with their child. And you're going to get recommendations. People are going to tell you the products that they like the best. They're going to recommend restaurants that they like to go to and haven't had any kind of problem at. And those are the places you're going to go to, and those are the products you're going to buy. There will still be challenges when you travel. You do have to do a lot more research. You have to pack a lot more food for a road trip, but okay, it's just one more thing you're going to do. And as a parent, you do it because it's for your child. And we had a birthday party last night for my 2-year-old, and we had gluten-free pizza and gluten-free cupcakes. We had balloons and stamps and tattoos, and everybody was having a great time. So yeah, it's not going to completely rule your life to a point where you're thinking about it every second of the day. You do have to think about it at least once a day because you have to plan your meals, but you're going to be happy with your family.
Well, it's when I look at some of the difficulties, it really is the traveling. You know, the airports. You know, you
Yes,
go to an
airports are the
airport,
worst.
and tell me about your experience with Calvin in the airport.
I mean, we had a layover in Paris, and I mean, Paris has delicious breads. I mean, it's just breads and cheeses, and it's just so yummy. And there's just no place to take a child unless you go to the airport restaurant that has a salad. And it's like, you tell a 6-year-old he can only have a salad. I mean, that's just not going to happen. So it's usually finding, just one of the little markets in the airport, finding some yogurt. I don't know all the things around Doritos, but we do let Calvin have Doritos, and he's been okay. So we're acting as if Doritos are fine. But that's, because everybody else is getting to eat a meal. So we try to give him something that makes him happy and something he likes. So it's usually yogurt and Doritos at an airport.
Well, it sounds like you are a problem solver, right? Just like we looked at solving problems. We want to make gluten-free
Yes.
food available, affordable, accessible, and now we want to. We're advancing research. We're really interested in really not only treatments and a cure, but focusing in on early diagnosis and making sure that everybody has the opportunity to get diagnosed with celiac disease.
Absolutely.
You have any thoughts on, where you think the research should go and what your hopes and dreams are for Calvin and your family in the future?
Well, I would say my hopes and dreams, it's easier to get tested. It's more commonplace to get tested. Calvin has celiac disease. It either runs in my family or Brian's family. Why none of our family members who suffer from a slew of GI problems and other health problems will not get tested is beyond me. I want them to just go to a doctor and it's like, okay, along with the panel of everything else we're going to do, we're also going to test you for celiac disease. Like, why can't it just be that simple? I'm so grateful to the companies that are making good food. I think it needs to be easier. So, but we're definitely heading in the right direction. It's 2023. I'm fortunate to live in a city that has a lot of great options, and we're going to make it work. But the research you guys are doing and supporting I'm just so grateful for it.
Well, thank you. We're, one of the things that when we do research and when we support research internationally, it's actually based on what our community wants and needs. So when our community we take the surveys and they started to say, we don't have GI issues. And we're like, 60% of you have, anxiety, depression, you can't pull out words, you have headaches, you have earaches, you're having all kinds of other issues. We need to explore this more. But also understanding, we've heard from the community that they want to be able to understand their disease and monitor the disease. So if you think about high cholesterol, right? Yes. You can measure your cholesterol and make sure that you have heart health, right? With us with celiac disease, many people, they can't measure, like with Calvin being asymptomatic, you never know whether or not Calvin gets gluten.
Right.
So if we had something called a biomarker, which is a very fancy medical term, then it would be much easier to get a diagnosis. We could ultimately would like to skip the endoscopy altogether.
Which would be great.
Which would be really great. And then also be able to monitor the disease so that you can be as healthy as possible.
That would be incredible because Calvin just went back to his GI doctor to get a blood test to make sure he didn't have the antibodies in his system. And that's great. Like, I'm happy to know that, but I wish there was an easier way. Having a 6-year-old get his blood drawn. I mean, my husband literally had to just hold him down. It's different than a shot. It's in and out, but watching the blood just come out of your arm. I mean, he panicked over it. And it to see your son go through that is heartbreaking. To see him go through the endoscopy is heartbreaking. Nobody wants to see their child be put to sleep. If there were easier ways to not only diagnose it, but an easier way to also just monitor it, it would just be such a blessing.
So it sounds like we want to focus on getting everybody diagnosed, yes. Right? We want to be able to monitor the disease because it's the progression. Really monitor your health. Make sure you're as healthy as possible. and then live in a world where, where people really understood the seriousness of the disease,
Exactly.
right? Because it's serious and we need to take it seriously. And if you can have delicious food that's gluten-free but it's handled in a very safe way, that would be an ultimate goal
100%.
for those people that want to have options and they want to potentially have a vaccine or an adjunct to the gluten-free diet, that there will be treatments beyond the gluten-free diet. And we put a stake in the ground for 2030 for that. So we're very excited about that. But we know, not everyone wants the same thing. And not every therapy is going to work for every person. So that's why it's so important that we meet the community where they are now. We focus on what we can accomplish and just continue to improve the quality of life so that our community can eat without fear.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Here. I'm for all of that 100%.
Thanks for tuning into this episode, and don't forget to like and share our podcast.